Work is gonna be busy. We've been picking up recently. Today's my only day off. Plan to spend the entire day playing games. And then tomorrow, sorry, I'm got the news on. I'm seeing a crash on my TV. Wasn't expecting that. Anyways, tomorrow. So today I'm gonna spend the entire day playing video games. And then starting tomorrow, I'm gonna be working all week. My next day off is Sunday. And then I don't know what I'm gonna be in the mood for, so it's probably gonna be a while before you get like a real video. So I'm making this one just so I have some sort of content. And I'm making this video to ask A, B, C, or D. I'm trying to get more back into writing, and I've been doing some fan fiction stuff just for fun. I still have no plans to ever publish again, but if I was to publish something, I'm wondering which of these stories would you be more likely to read? Because there are four other works in progress that there was a plan to make it into a book, but then after 4 straight years spending every free second I have dedicated to writing, I decided to take a break because I was feeling burnt out. And then that break just kept getting longer and longer. So I'm trying to find more. I'm trying to get back into it again. I found a balance somewhat, and now I'm trying to like incorporate that back into the balance. So A, B, C, or D. Which one sounds more appealing? A is a tragic love story about two people who can't stop loving each other but can never make it work. They start dating as teenagers. We also see them in their 20s and 40s. It's not linear. We meet them in their 40s and then we just keep going back and forth through these three different periods of time. We see them falling in love again and again, and we're falling apart again and again. And like, I'll give you a spoiler alert. They don't end up together in the end, because whether or not they're together isn't the point. They don't end up together, and the point is, it's like sometimes love truly isn't enough. Because they've never stopped loving each other, but they can't stop screwing up. And then there's another one, which is about a woman who wakes up in her 30s with no memories. She's been in a coma since she was a teenager, and literally just inspired by a social media post being like, imagine someone who's been in a coma for 20 years and they wake up to this bullshit. And that was from the first presidency. So anyway, that's what this story is. It's it's a girl who wakes up in her 30s after being in a coma since high school, and she's reading her diary, listening to stories from friends and family, and trying to piece together who she was, who she used to be, and how much of who she used to be is she still going to be now. And then there's that. So that one's B. And so now coming up is C, which is probably my favorite story on this one, but it's also been the most difficult to write because it's entire world building, and it's like the first of a series, and I have no idea where it's going. I barely wrote like an outline for book two. And I think if you have some idea where you want it to lead, it's a lot easier because there are specific choices you have to make because you're setting up for other stuff. But with this one, it's just like we're flying by the seat of our ass. So for C, it's actually like a medieval, ancient times kind of story. It's a fantasy. What about? It's like Lord of the Rings style shit. Cause it was actually inspired by Shrek because Shrek was a very good movie. Like it parodied a lot of like the Disney fairy tales. It's like, okay, here's like a typical kids movie, and we're gonna point out all the things that every typical kids movie does and why it's stupid. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. Which is like, but like, okay, everything that you would normally expect to see from like your average princess movie, do the exact opposite for that. And that's exactly how this started. And then it took, at some point in time, like once the foundation was laid, it ended up taking on a life of its own. And so what this is now, it is a story of a runaway, of a former slave, born in chains. Then she grew up, escaped to freedom, accidentally stumbles on an enchanted castle that's guarded by a dragon, and frees a young prince. And yeah, they go on an adventure. There's a whole thing about destiny, which once again, if I knew how it was gonna end, it would be a lot easier to lay the framework for that shit. Like he's the destined king, and was she his destined protector, also somewhat of a mother figure for him because he doesn't actually have one. Then there's a lot of shit. There's a lot of blood and death, and it's fun, it's exciting, but I don't know. And then there's the last one, D, which is actually a superhero story. And I know what you're thinking. Superhero stories should aren't that? Isn't that like comic book stuff? I don't know. This one was never meant to be comic book. It just isn't. Plus, comic books I can't draw, so I have to pay people to draw for me, and I don't have that much money right now. So, I have enough details on this to make it. It's more of a coming of age story. It's very much human interest piece. It's it's about three teenagers, all dudes. There are female characters here, and more will be added as the story progresses. It was actually inspired by The Incredibles. Just it's not based on The Incredibles, but it's inspired by the world that they built. Because it's like, oh, they have this world where superheroes are forced underground, and it's like it's legitimately illegal, and like that was like the concept behind it. It's like, okay, well, the parents were told they couldn't, but are those same laws supposed to be applied equally to these teenagers who weren't even born when all these laws were made? I mean, look, I know there's a flawed concept, but it ended up being something great. It's a story about how starting from a world where superheroes have always existed but have always stayed hidden in the shadows, and these three teenagers who are just separate people living their own lives, just normal, everyday, typical kids living normal, everyday, typical lives, except that, the sun goes down, they put on the costume and go kick some asses. And they happen to bump into each other and start working together because, hey, there's a big threat that could potentially kill a bunch of lives, and somehow they're at the epicenter of it. And they're in way over their heads. But they get some help. And this one's actually part of an entire series. Like, this was actually a prequel that was written afterwards. The first one I wrote was book 3. This is a 5-book series, and it was the first I wrote book 3. Then I went back and I was like, the origin story of how we got here seems more interesting, and I prefer linear storytelling, honestly. And so, yeah, this one, it's fun, exciting. I think it's probably the most complete, and I think honestly, I don't love writing. I don't. Like, I hate being called a writer for the mere fact that I feel like being known as a writer requires a certain passion for the craft, a dedication for it, a love of words. I don't. I enjoy storytelling, and I learned how to write so I could share those stories, but I don't actually enjoy the writing itself. I love brainstorming. I love just sitting here with some music on, stare at the ceiling, and just think of different stories that I could write, and different plot points and different endings it could take. Everything after that is just effort. I've learned to love editing a little bit because to some degree editing is brainstorming plus math. You gotta figure out how to make the story you wrote work. But yeah, like the actual writing, not really that fun. Like once I get started, I can get into it. I can do it. I'm having but like I'm having trouble finding any motivation to actually get to it. So I guess that's half the reason for this, because like it's harder to hold yourself accountable. It's a lot easier for other people to hold you accountable. So yeah, just once again, leave a comment. A, B, C, D. A, tragic love story. B, trying to get back lost memories, figure out who you are. C, you know, escaped slave, frees prince from castle, and they go on an adventure. D, the superheroes. These are all better than I'm making them sound right now, I promise. There's been years of effort put into them. It's early in the morning, and I just figured I should make this video, otherwise I'm never going to. Anyways, yeah, leave some comments down below. I have more stuff coming in the coming months. Just for now, I'm just not in the mood for YouTube right this second. So this is the only video you're gonna get for at least a week, possibly longer. And until the next time you see my face in a video, have a great day, week, month, year, however long it ends up being.